I'm MeshCentral, and in this video we're going to take a look at managing a Raspberry Pi using MeshCentral. Raspberry Pis are very nice little devices. They start at $35, and they're great for doing all sorts of things. And as you start using them to do all sorts of things, you may want to be able to remotely manage them, be able to remotely access your Raspberry Pi from wherever on the internet through a single web portal. And this is where MeshCentral is really useful. So what we're going to do today is use MeshCentral to manage a Raspberry Pi device. So first of all, I have my trusty server right here. This is my developer server. You can run your own in the cloud and so on. And this is the web page with all my devices. But if I go back here, behind me, I have a little white box here with a Raspberry Pi. This is a Raspberry Pi 4, 8 gigs, so the top of the line one, and it currently has the default Raspbian on it. And so I can switch over here, and you can see on the upper left side is my developer desktop, and on the right here is the Raspberry Pi. So let's start by going here on the MeshCentral instance, and I want to first add an agent to the Raspberry Pi. So there's two ways you can do this. One way is you can go on the Raspberry Pi itself, and you can navigate. I'm going to move this cursor now. You can navigate to the MeshCentral site. You can click on Add Agent for your device group that you want to add the device to. And then you go onto operating system, you select Linux BSD, and you basically cut and paste this script as root inside your device. So that's one way you can do it, is you basically cut and paste this. You hit copy. You go into a terminal, and you paste it. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to remotely SSH into your device and then paste the script. So what I'm going to do is do that way. I'm going to type ifconfig on Linux. And I'm going to take a look at my IP address for my device. It's 192.168.2.131 for me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open a PuTTY session to 131. Let's see here. And what I'm going to do is go back to my developer machine. So I have this PuTTY session right there to my Raspberry Pi. I'm going to log in. And the nice thing about this technique is that it works even if you don't have a remote UI environment on the Raspbian device. If you're running a Raspberry Pi that has no X windows, no mouse and windowing system, you're just using a command prompt, and then you can do it the SSH. So I'm logged into my Raspberry Pi here remotely. I can click on Add Agent, select BSD Linux, and copy this, or I hit the copy button. I right-click on the PuTTY, say Enter, and it will download. What it will do is it will auto-detect what device you're running, and then the script will download the appropriate agent for that device, and then it will install it. And you can see it says starting service right here. And then the first thing the Raspberry Pi the agent will do is create a self-signed certificate, basically an identity for the device. And it will take a little bit. And then once that's done, you'll see the device pop up. And here you can see it's RPAR4-8G. And by default, the name that it will pop up as is the same as the host name of the device. So if I type host name, you can see that's the name here. So predictably, that's the one that showed up there. Now, of course, you can click on it. And the first thing I can do is I can, of course, change the name if I want to. Or I can click here and change the logo to a Raspberry Pi logo. Now, this is an older Raspberry Pi V1 icon here. I may change it at some point, but it's very representative of a Raspberry Pi. And so now I'm connected. The agent is connected on the device. I can do desktop, connect, and there you go. I'm remotely connected to the Raspberry Pi on from my browser. I can also go to Files and remotely access files here. So I can go in temp, drag and drop folder, files, or I can click on a file to download it, and so on. So that's super useful. Or I can go to terminal and, of course, connect to the terminal. Now, if you don't have X Windows installed on the Raspberry Pi, then obviously the desktop tab will not show. And so I may have another Raspberry Pi here, like this home server. You can see it has terminal and files. It doesn't have desktop. And that's normal. That operating system does not have X installed. Now, in the terminal, you can click connect, and it will open a shell as the agent. So if I type who am I think I'm currently root because the agent is running as root. But if you right-click on the connect, you can say user shell, and then who am I? And it will be the currently logged in user, so Pi, because I'm currently logged in as Pi on the remote device. Or I can do login shell, and then I can log in. And so then I'll require the username and password. And then there it goes. Perfect. So that's the 3 ways you can access the terminal remotely on your Pi. And obviously, this is great because all over the world, you have a Pi somewhere, a Raspberry Pi, you can manage it from a single website. The other thing I want to show is the details panel. It shows you the networking on the Pi, current IP address, also shows you the type of mesh agent that's connected and the operating system for this Raspberry Pi. There's a little icon here on the upper right that's a graph icon, and it will show you the current CPU and memory and also the temperature of the Raspberry Pi. It has a temperature sensor, and it works perfectly fine. So you can see the temperature of my device right here. So if you're worried about your device getting too hot or something, probably a nice thing to have. So I can click that off, and I'm good to go. Now let's see. Hostname, settings, detail tab. I also want to take a look at the location of the agent when we install the agent on the Pi. So the agent will be in /user local, and then there's a folder here called mesh services, and then there's one called mesh agent, and this is where the mesh agent is installed. So there's a log file, there's a .db file, the MSH file, and the agent binary itself. So this agent binary obviously is compiled for, in this case, ARM 32-bit. The database is created when you first run the agent. It contains the certificate and information about the agent. There's a log file here. Let's take a look at meshagent.log. So it basically says no certificate. So it created its certificate here. That's always happens the first time you run the agent. And then there's the MSH file, and that basically tells the agent where to connect. So at the beginning here, it says that this is the identifier of the device group the agent should join. This is the server hash. This is used to authenticate the server to not connect to an imposter server. And this is the URI of this, where to connect, where to connect to access the server. So that's it. Now, if you want to uninstall the agent, don't delete all this stuff. That's not good. What you do is, one trick is that you go to add agent again, but instead of selecting Linux BSD and having this script, you select Linux BSD uninstall, and it gives you another script here that you can copy, and then when you paste it, it will uninstall the agent. So let's try that. So right now, I'm showing only online agents. The Raspberry Pi is powered on. I'm going to right-click, say enter, and basically it's going to re-download the agent and the MSH, and then it's going to run an uninstall on that and stop the service, and that's it. Boom, service is gone, and then you can see the device is disconnected. So that's about it. This is a way to quickly remotely manage a Raspberry Pi, just wonderful little devices, and you can use MeshCentral very quickly to remotely access them, and then have a remote shell, transfer files, remotely access the desktop. Just absolutely great tool. Hopefully it will be useful. Thank you very much. Have a great day.